كافورا عينا يشرب بها عباد الله يفجرونها تفجيرا يوفون بالنذر ويخافون يوما كان شره مستطيرا ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا فوقاهم الله شر ذلك اليوم ولقاهم نضرة وسرورا وجزاهم بما صبروا جنة وحريرا متكئين فيها على الأرائك لا يرون فيها شمسا ولا زمهريرا ودانية عليهم ظلالها وذللت قطوفها تذليلا ويطاف عليهم بآنية من فضة وأكواب كانت قوارير من فضة قدروها تقديرا ويسقون فيها كأسا كان مزاجها زنجبيلا عينا فيها تسمى سلسبيلا ويطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون إذا رأيتهم حسبتهم لؤلؤا منثورا وإذا رأيت ثم رأيت نعيما وملكا كبيرا عاليهم ثياب سندس خضر واستبرق وحلوا أساور من فضة وسقاهم ربهم شرابا طهورا إن هذا كان لكم جزاء وكان سعيكم مشكورا إنا نحن نزلنا عليك القرآن تنزيلا فاصبر لحكم ربك ولا تطع منهم آثما أو كفورا واذكر اسم ربك بكرة وأصيلا ومن الليل فاسجد له وسبحه ليلا طويلا إن هؤلاء يحبون العاجلة ويذرون وراءهم يوما ثقيلا نحن خلقناهم وشددنا أسرهم وإذا شئنا بدلنا أمثالهم تبديلا إن هذه تذكرة فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه سبيلا وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله إن الله كان عليما حكيما يدخل من يشاء في رحمته والظالمين أعد لهم عذابا أليما صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات.
Jazakallah, Brother Faisal. One more loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajam. I would now like to request Sister Rabab Zaidi to recite some poetry with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I wrote this poem about a year or two ago, and it's called Zahra Awaited Us. And as you listen, please keep the mothers and fathers of Palestine in your thoughts and your du'as. At the beginning of creation, before the universe converged, God created a single light from which creation would emerge. From this light emerged another until there were 14, for the guidance of creation to seek the merciful unseen. And among these sacred lights, there was the light of Fatima, the most beautiful reflection of the beauty of Allah, the greatest of all women on both earth and paradise, the mother of her father and the coolness of his eyes. Her life within this world was deeply bittersweet and brief. Every chapter of her story was full of suffering and grief. And among her many sorrows was the pain of Ashura and the knowledge of the dhulm that would unfold in Karbala. When her beloved father told her of what would happen to Hussain, there are no words in any language to articulate her pain. Her child would die alone upon the plains of Karbala, without the Prophet, without Ali, without Hassan and Fatima. His enemies would wound him throughout the day of Ashura. He would be aflood with pain and thirst before returning to Allah. How could any mother bear this? How could her heart endure the pain of holding her young child while knowing he'd be slain? But as the heart of Zahra broke, there emerged a ray of light, like the whispering of dawn amid the darknesses of night, that brought solace to her grief in that hour of desolation and filled her aching heart with relief and consolation. Rasulullah informed her that a group of Shia would arise, who would commemorate Hussain and shed tears at his demise. Every corner of the earth would be full of his azah, for every atom in creation would remember Karbala. So as we gather here today, we embody that dua that pleased the Prophet's heart and brought comfort to Zahra. We must remember as we gather to engage in azah and discuss that existence awaited Zahra, but Zahra awaited us. With the radiance of her being, she held the universe in thrall, and every atom of existence was at her beck and call. Yet in her time of deepest sorrow, her greatest source of peace was the promise that her Shia would hold these gatherings and grieve. So you and I can purchase paradise every time we mourn Hussain, for our tears are the healing waters that eased his mother's pain. And the one who pleases Fatima has pleased Rasulullah, and the universe rejoices when you please the beloved of Allah. For a single cup of tea drunk with love for Abu Abdullah makes one worthy of a palace in the currency of Allah. Because these tears that flow from us and this love within our souls brings us closer to reunion with our overarching goal, to actualize Tawheed in every moment of our lives. Within this sacred truth lies the key to paradise. Salawat.
Jazakallah, Sister. About one more loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. I would now like to request Brother Ayan to please come forward and recite a marsiya with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. क्यों छोड़ जाती है माँ, क्यों छोड़ जाती है माँ, है क्यों छोड़ जाती है माँ, کیوں چھوٹ جاتی ہے ماں، انگلی پکڑ کے چلایا سینے سے تم نے لگایا، ان 3 سالوں میں، ان 3 سالوں میں اماں تم نے بہت کچھ سکھایا، ماں سے بچھڑ کے جیتے ہیں کیسے، کب یہ سکھاتی ہے ماں، کیوں چھوڑ جاتی ہے ماں، ہے کیوں چھوڑ جاتی ہے ماں، کیوں چھوڑ جاتی ہے ماں، دروازہ جب سے گرا ہے پہلو شکستہ ہوا ہے، ٹوٹی ہوئی پسلیاں ہے، شبیر سب جانتا ہے، تکلیف میں ہوں بچوں کو اپنے، کب یہ بتاتی ہے ماں، کیوں چھوڑ جاتی ہے ماں، ہے کیوں چھوڑ جاتی ہے ماں، کیوں چھوڑ جاتی ہے ماں، اس فکر میں جاگ جانا پیاسا نہ ہو میرا بیٹا، احساس ہے مجھ کو اماں کیا پیار ہوتا ہے ماں کا، راتوں کو اٹھ کر بیٹے کو اپنے پانی پلاتی ہے ماں، کیوں چھوڑ جاتی ہے ماں، ہے کیوں چھوڑ جاتی ہے ماں، کیوں چھوڑ جاتی ہے ماں، ایک روز ایسا بھی آیا تھا فاطمہ کا جنازہ، رخ سے کفن جب ہٹایا شبیر نے ماں سے پوچھا، زیر کفن بھی آواز سن کر آنسو بہاتی ہے ماں، کیوں چھوڑ جاتی ہے ماں، ہے کیوں چھوڑ جاتی ہے ماں، کیوں چھوڑ جاتی ہے ماں، بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔
Ahsan, brother Ayan. One more loud salawat, please. Allahumma Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Respected Shaykh, elders, brothers and sisters in faith, Assalamu alaikum. My condolences to all Mu'mineen on these nights. Jazakallah, Shaykh Bilal, for accepting our invitation once again to speak here at CFK. It is always an honor to host you. Just a quick reminder before I request the Shaykh to ascend the minbar. Jazakallah to all that have donated in these days to City of Knowledge. We do not do any fundraising between programs. It is requested to all who can to please help us reach our objectives and donate as much as you can here. So sponsorship slots are available online and updated every week at cfkdfw.org. As always, event details are posted on our webpage and on our WhatsApp group, our webpage cfkdfw.org, where you can sign up for our newsletter, find the QR code to join our WhatsApp groups, and to donate and sponsor nights. For opportunities to help behind the scenes, or if you have any questions, please speak to myself or any of the volunteers. Before I request the Shaykh to begin his speech, I would like to request that we recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhumin of tonight's program sponsors. Let us please also include marhumin of the Qanani family and our own marhumin and the marhumin of the Ummah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. I would now like to request the Shaykh to please ascend the member and for everybody to please move forward with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil faraj.
رحم الله من يقرأ سورة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And your loudest salawat for ta'jil farj sahib al-asr wa zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بذكر المسائب Ali Muhammad. May Allah increase in our reward for commemorating the difficulties of Ali Muhammad. My intention was that over the course of 2 nights, we would break out a conclusion of what it is that Allah has promised our Holy Prophet in this verse of Surah Duha. We're going to condense it to one discussion, and I apologize that Allah did not give me the tawfiq to be here with you to be able to continue this commemoration, that we could break this out further. But it's a mukhtasir to cover a number of points. It's a brief discussion to cover a number of points of the promise Allah made to His Prophet and how it was fulfilled. In Surah Duha, which is one of the surahs that consoles our Prophet in a state of difficulty, Allah makes a promise to our Holy Prophet where He says, وَلَسَوْفَ يُؤْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى, that soon your Lord will give to you and you shall be pleased. The discussion around what it is that Allah promises to give our Holy Prophet and what it is that He intends to give him that will please our Holy Prophet, there are a variety of different answers and solutions that are given by various mufassirin. In some cases, it's the discussion of Jannah and that heaven will be his domain, that the hereafter will be his domain, his authority. Others have implied and said that this was, because this was revealed in the city of Mecca, that this was pointing to the direction that the authority of our Prophet would expand over Arabia and that those who had oppressed him would soon be under his authority at one point in time. However, when we take a look at this surah and the promise that Allah is making that he will satisfy our Prophet with something and he will give him something that he will soon receive and will receive as a great benefit, some of the Mufassirin point to and look at one of the other surahs that's sent to our Holy Prophet as a consolation, which is Surah Al-Kawthar. Inna a'ataynaka al-Kawthar. That Allah now turns after making a promise in Surah Al-Duha, in one of the later surahs, which is also a surah that's revealed as a consolation to Rasulullah, meaning that at a time when he's going through great difficulty, Allah now is promising and saying to him, Inna a'taynaka al-Kawthar. We have now given to you Kawthar. Now the question of what is Kawthar is one of the interesting discussions that happens, in the Mufassirin who go and research this topic have provided a number of different resources and explanations. Some explanations talk to the idea that this khayr al-kathir, that Kawthar, can mean one of two things. One is the nahar, the sea, the body of water that exists on the Day of Judgment. That body of water that will be the unique possession of our Holy Prophet, that is described in such a way to say that on that day when thirst shall not be availed for even the Anbiya, the one source of succor and comfort, the one source that will remove that thirst of the Day of Judgment is this Kawthar. And the only way to get to this Kawthar is through Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So Allah is saying, I gave you this. This is one opinion. Another, this khayr al-kathir, describes and says again that Rasulullah's authority and his message being spread out over the world was khayr al-kathir. And giving the fact that the Prophet was able to now have his message that he was preaching and suffering through the process of preaching was now widely accepted and was established, was a really good thing. But other Mufassirin point to a different explanation. They say, look at the context and understand from the context that the khayr al-kathir, the great goodness given to Rasulullah, this Kawthar that's given to Rasulullah, is in another point. When we look and see that the fundamental of this surah and its discussion is that it's a consolation for our Holy Prophet. Why is it a consolation? One of the explanations, and it's pointed to in the surah within itself, is that when they insulted the Prophet, it was Allah who would console the Prophet. So what did they insult him with? They called him Abtar. Abtar, when you refer to an animal, is an animal whose tail has been cut off, who has no thing after him. When you refer to it as a man, it refers to a man who has no lineage that continues after him. So when the enemies of Islam would see our Prophet in the city of Mecca, and it happened in an incident where one of the leaders of the Quraysh was having a conversation with the Prophet in the provinces of the Kaaba, that the others saw and they said, what are you talking to him, this Abtar for? This one has no lineage. Remember, our Prophet had 2 sons by this point in time who had died in their infancy. He had no sons. That at a culture that put the greatest value upon having of sons and to have a lineage, they chose to insult our Prophet and say that he has no lineage. So when Allah wants to console him, now the concept of Kawthar and Khayr al-Kathir will be tied to the offspring of Rasulullah, which is why we make the statement to say that when Allah says, Inna a'ataynaka al-Kawthar, certainly we have given you this Kawthar, we're referring to none other than Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha. That this discussion about Sayyidah Fatima, that Allah is first promising, and when He consoles, He promises, I will give you such that you are satisfied. Then He promises and He delivers and He says, I have given you that which is khayr al-kathir. Is one of the ways in which we understand the significance of Sayyidah Zahra is to see that when Allah refers to as khayr al-kathir, that within her example, we will find every format of goodness. The best of excellencies and qualities will be embodied in this lady who was the best and the best thing that could be given to Rasulullah. Which is why there are 3 points to analyze that we'll take a look at. Is that this khayr al-kathir and the goodness that this lady presented to us in first the example of society, the second the example of religion, and third the example of spirituality. And that from this we will understand, we will see, we will increase both in our ability to follow the example of Sayyidah Zahra, ma'rifat of her relevance and association with the faith, and 3, the azamat in the eyes of Allah that He gave to this lady. With that, we'll begin the first point. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When we talk about this first example of societal goodness, and that the goodness in society that is presented by Sayyidah Zahra, first and foremost understand something about how this opinion of Sayyidah Zahra being khayr al-kathir conflicted with the opinion of the time. That in the conflict with the opinion of the time is that sons are good, girls are bad. We're not saying that's the contemporary opinion. I see half the room looking at me very seriously. But that this was the opinion of the time. And Allah takes rahmatul lil alameen, the mercy to all of humanity, that who should embody the best of characteristics, who should embody that which changes this world, and He gives him a daughter. That this description to say that if there was a comparison to understand what's good for society, here Allah is setting the example. There's nothing better for anyone in the society than to have a daughter. Otherwise, I would have given it to my beloved, my Habib. I would have given it to my mercy to all of humanity. The description here of giving him a daughter was an explanation to say, reevaluate, O society, you have made a mistake. But this wasn't the only example in which Sayyidah Zahra becomes an example of societal change and showing goodness in society. Rather, one of the examples of a role model for what should be in society is the embodiment in the personality of Sayyidah Zahra. Today, as we raise our daughters, as we set the example in our sisters and in our mothers and in our women of what it is that we want and what it is that Allah wants to see in the example of a lady, it is embodied in the example of Sayyidah Zahra. One of the significant points of looking at her to understand how she becomes a role model for society and there is goodness in her is looking at and seeing how it is that she fulfills her role as a part of not just the faith, but as a part of society. From the one aspect, she's not silent in society. Meaning what? At the events of the Battle of Badr and Uhud, Sayyidah Fatima is one of the nurses that's in the battle. She assists in the support of Islam. When our Holy Prophet gives the explanation, he says, the last one I see when I leave the city, the first one I see when I return to the city is my daughter Fatima, is an explanation of her being a part of the message and the responsibility of Islam. But, and this is where we understand the example, that her being a role model for women is not that she had the same responsibility as the men in society. And this is an important part to understand. Our contemporary culture and society, and why this is really important, and we have to go back and look at the examples that were established by Rasulullah. They weren't just examples that were established for the time of Jahiliyyah or for the time of Arabia 1400 years ago. The example of Ahlul Bayt is a timeless example. That no matter the society and culture you live in, within them you will find the needs that you have for every society and culture. In our contemporary society, the culture has established the norm that there should be equality, not equity. Meaning what? If a man can do it, a woman has to be able to do it. A woman should do it if a man does it. This wasn't the example set by the personality of Sayyidah Zahra. There is equity, meaning that the Jannah that we can achieve, the Islam we follow, the religion, the prayer, the salat, the som, zakat is equal between them in aspect of reward. However, the actions that they have to carry out are different. One of the places that we take a look at this is the idea of the marriage of Sayyidah Zahra. In the marriage of Sayyidah Zahra, there's not equality, there's equity. You see, a man and woman, to be in a good, healthy marriage, there's not the need for equality, there's a need for equity. Meaning what? There's companionship between the two, there's compatibility. If both embody the same responsibilities, then what's the benefits of one over another? The structure of a relationship and a marriage that's embodied in this example is the idea that one complements the other. That the two together make one complete unit. Within a man are certain characteristics and within a woman are other different characteristics. When they come together, they create one whole unit together. And that's compatibility is the question, not the equality is the question. This entire discussion about the idea of being a role model and embodying those characteristics that are unique and not feeling the necessity to be identical in these aspects is something that is taught when we look at the personality of Sayyidah Zahra. She doesn't insist on going out to fight in the war. Similarly, just because you don't fight in a war doesn't mean that you don't have a responsibility to the religion. As a matter of fact, that each fulfills their obligation in their own unique way, and that the two working together are the conclusion of what is desired by Islam, that one supports the other. This aspect, along with the promotion of the concept of the hijab that was taught by Sayyidah Zahra in society, were some of the fundamentals of how society benefited from the idea of what to look for in role models, and that Islam appointed and affixed role models for both genders to go and to look at and to learn from of what are the characteristics to embody. So when we take a look at the societal change, one, we look at the societal change from the aspect of a daughter. Two, we look at the societal change from the aspect of a wife and the compatibility within a wife. But individually, she has this aspect of where the Prophet, when he teaches and he says, the last that I see when I leave the city and the first that I see when I return to the city, is the aspect that women are not absent from the difficult conversations of society. Our Prophet didn't always go for peace. Our Prophet at times went for war. Our Prophet didn't always come back safe. Our Prophet at times came back injured. Our Prophet, when he faced conflicts, they were not hidden from the women. They were not hidden from his daughter. Meaning that don't assume and imagine that if the roles aren't the same, that the knowledge has to be limited and restricted. No. Rather, the fact that even as an individual woman, her role in society was present, but it was not the same as the other members of society. It was something that was unique for her, to make her the compatible member of society. We can continue further with this, but for brevity of time, we want to move on to the second area with the topic of her impact as Khair al-Kathir for religion. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When we take a look at the idea that other than just the concept of society, how it is that she impacted religion, one of the important areas that we take a look at is her relationship with the Wilayah and the Imam, and the need to support Imamat. In the concept of Imamat, one of the important discussions that happens, and the establishment of the fundamental of Imamat, happens after the Shahadat of the Prophet, when Sayyidah Fatima steps forward and says, "Give me fadak." This entire discussion around fadak, you notice that Bibi Fatima asks for it, to the extent where we see khutbah fadaqiyya. We see her go out and present the argument that this is my right, give me my right. But we don't see any of the Imams, or we don't see Imam Ali take it after the event of her shahadat. The concept of the discussion of fadak is important to understand. We're talking about, as we recited, Brother Faisal recited in Surah Al-Dahr, Surah Al-Insan, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا يَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شَكُورًا. In the start verses of Surah Al-Dahr, we see this discussion about these are those people who feed for the sake of Allah, the poor, the orphan, and the prisoner. And they say, we don't want any reward from you, we are feeding you for the sake of Allah. Meaning that wealth and the ownership of property was not a priority for this family of Ahlul Bayt. So then why is it that we see that after the shahadat of the Prophet, we're seeing Sayyidah Fatima ask for property and wealth? Meaning that was it a material purpose that was being asked for in the process of arguing for the condition of fadak? If that was the case, then it conflicts with the personality that Allah is describing in Surah Al-Insan or Surah Al-Dahr, that describes and says that these are those people who give away their wealth. They don't want wealth. If they were those who give away wealth, then now why do we see Sayyidah Fatima, after the death of her Prophet, come and petition the Khalifa or the supposed Khalifa for wealth? Fadak was a wealthy piece of land. It was a good piece of land. Made money. Had good wealth associated with it. Which is another interesting point when we look at the roles of women in society, that there's nothing wrong with women earning. Sayyidah Fatima used to earn. Sayyidah Fatima's mother used to earn. There's nothing wrong with that. Why is she then petitioning for this property? The discussion and the argument around fadak and why Sayyidah Fatima presents herself to fight for the role of fadak is her interest in supporting the imamat of Imam Ali alayhi salam. You see, let's look at this logically. The message of Rasulullah comes. It's pure, it's clean. The shahadat of Rasulullah, society leaves the message and corrupts it. Sayyidah Fatima, knowing the message of her father, the effort that he exerted, wants to preserve the message of her father. But the imam of the time is her husband. If Sayyidah Fatima comes out and openly says to the people, give the khilafah to Ali like my father told you to, they will say, you're just doing favoritism. It's your husband, that's why. If Sayyidah Fatima brings the mention that the khilafat is in the hands, should be in the hands of Ali ibn Abi Talib, they will say that you are partisan. We don't believe anything that you say. Sayyidah Fatima raises the flag of Fadak with the necessity of saying that if you admit the fact that Fadak is my property and was given to me by my father, then there are other things. If my father can bequeath the wealth and property of Fadak, then my father can bequeath the khilafat to Ali ibn Abi Talib. That if there is one that can be left, your argument is that the Prophet leaves behind no wealth. He leaves behind nothing. He leaves nothing as inheritance. So Sayyidah Zahra brings the argument to show that no, the Prophet did leave responsibility. He did leave wealth. He did own property. He did give property. So your argument that he can't leave anything that is a material possession or a material authority behind is void. So she structures her position on the argument as such that she cannot be considered biased, but once you admit one of these items, you have to admit the second. So Sayyidah Fatima's role in the religion is the defense and the position of wilayat and imamat. And she does it in a way that is the most intellectually sound and perfect way of demonstrating this authority. Which is why, till today, the argument is very valid to say that the imamat went to the hands of Imam Ali. That was proven by the example of Alama Amini. Alama Amini, when he goes to Hajj after writing Kitab al-Ghadir, the ulama of Makkah, they decide that, oh, now we've got this scholar who's been attacking us, let's attack him. They invite him to a dinner and they say, listen, come to the dinner, we promise we won't debate with you, but we just want to have dinner with you. He comes, he sits for dinner. They say at the end of dinner now, in the attempt to attack him, they say, let's all share one hadith that we all really love. And all these Sunni ulama come forward and they share a hadith that they really love. And each one of those hadith is an attack on the work of Alama Amini. Until they come to Alama Amini and they say, why don't you share a hadith now? Alama Amini says, I'll share a hadith on one condition. And I say, what's that? He says that A, you will verify that the hadith I am saying is sahih and correct, and 2, you will let me ask a question. I said, okay, go ahead. Alama Amini says, there's a hadith of our Prophet. Man mata wa lam ya'rif imam zamanihi mata mitatan jahiliyyah. One who dies and does not know the imam of his time dies the death of ignorance, as if he has no faith. Every one of the scholars agrees. This is sahih. This is authentic. So he says, now my question to you. Who was the imam of Fatima Zahra? Each one of the scholars refuses to answer this question. Because if they say that the first Khalifa was the Imam of Sayyidah Fatima died angry with him, and there is nothing hidden. Everyone agrees that she refused to believe in him and refused to acknowledge him and said that bear witness that I die angry with this one. So that means that either one, na'uzu billah, that she died without knowing the Imam of her time, or 2, that one was not the Imam of Fatima Zahra. The demonstration of proving the authority of the Imamat of Imam Ali is embodied in the example of Sayyidah Fatima, and it was her aspect and responsibility to defend the Imam in whatever capacity she has. This aspect of defending the Imam is an example that wasn't just limited to the life of Fatima Zahra, but rather look even into the field of Karbala, and what you see Sayyidah Zainab and those ladies do is to fulfill the example of defending and protecting and continuing the message of the Imam and supporting the Imam in every aspect that's possible. You see, sometimes again, because it's a culture of equality, let's acknowledge the culture we live in. It's a culture of equality that the question comes, why did the women not go fight for Imam Hussain? They did, but not with the sword, because that was not wajib on them. They stood in the face of oppression. They announce the truth. They continue to fight for the cause of the Imam with their words, with their presence. It's the same example that Sayyidah Fatima lays out. The responsibilities of women and men are different in Islam. It doesn't mean that they don't have an obligation to defend and support the Imam. But each one has a unique role. This also comes up in contemporary. You guys are okay? I'm going to take a side for a second. You guys all right? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This lack of understanding about the difference between these roles comes up till today in our own culture, in our own community, where the question comes, why are there no female maraja? Why are there no female maraja? Baba, being a marja is mustahab. Hijab is wajib. Let me explain. A marja is someone who makes himself available to all of the people to answer questions in every environment, in every situation, has to be accessible, that you have to be able to interact with them, they have to answer your question, they have to be exposed in front of the people at all points in time. And it is something that is wajib kifai, that as long as there is someone there to fulfill that role, it is fulfilled and it is complete upon that, and it is not a wajib upon the community and ummah as a whole to go through, which is why all of us are not talking about becoming maraja. We're not. But hijab is wajib. Meaning that hijab and the preservation of hijab in the face of, for example, the non-mahram, and to protect that sanctity is mandatory. It doesn't mean that a woman shouldn't have that knowledge, no. But it means that hijab and that preservation is more significant than the ability to go out and to demonstrate to people that I have this knowledge. Look at the personality of Sayyidah Zainab. We see her speeches after the waqia of Karbala, such to the extent that the Imam Zain al-Abidin says to her, Anti alima ghayr mu'allima, Anti fahima ghayr mufahama. That, oh aunt, you are the knowledgeable one without being taught. You are the one who understands without someone giving you understanding. Was that suddenly appeared in the personality of Sayyidah Zainab? No. But why is it that only after the events of Karbala that we saw her come out with this? Because until the event of Karbala, it was safe for the Imam to speak for himself. After the event of Karbala, when it endangered the life of the Imam, then Sayyidah Zainab stands up and exposes that which was necessary for Islam to be preserved. Similarly, the concept comes that within Islam, we all have the example to follow of Sayyidah Fatima, of Sayyidah Zainab, support the religion, but the role of supporting the religion is unique between men and women. Sayyidah Fatima didn't come with the sword. Sayyidah Fatima came with her speeches. She came with her presentation. Sayyidah Zainab didn't come to the field of Karbala to fight in the field of Karbala against Umar Asad with a sword. She came as Sharikatul Hussain, the partner of Imam Hussain, to fight with her tongue and to support the religion of Islam. The knowledge was present. The moment when the hijab became required upon her that she fulfill and fight for the religion is when she stood up and exposed that which she possessed. It's not a discussion to say that women shouldn't possess this knowledge. That's not the argument. But to stand forward is that if there isn't one, then they stand forward and they do this. And it happened in other points in time in history as well too. But the fundamental of supporting the religion, of supporting the Imam, the necessity to support the Imam, Sayyidah Zainab takes that lesson from her mother, Bibi Fatima, when she sees her mother support Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Which is a lesson for each of us, to know our Imam, to support our Imam, to know the roles in which we support our Imam, to understand that these are unique processes that each of us possesses the capacity, the capability, and the responsibility to support the Imam, but it won't look exactly the same. That's okay. That's where the concept of equity in place of equality comes into place. And this was one of the important lessons of showing the significance of Wilayah and defending the position of Wilayah falls on both to make sure that the Imam and his position is fulfilled and preserved. Which is why the Shahadat of Bibi Fatima is one of the authentic proofs of the Imamat of Imam Ali. Why? That her Shahadat takes place at the age of 18. Every Muslim should ask the question, if there is a daughter of the Prophet and she dies at an unnatural age, why? What happened? it becomes a question that has to be answered. Anyone wants to question the events of history, let them question. But come back to the conclusion that you still have to answer this, that the daughter of the Prophet dies at an unnatural age. What causes that death? Why did she put herself in that position? When we hear about the shahadat of Sayyidah Fatima, the event of the door takes maybe 3 to 5 days after the shahadat of the Holy Prophet. One of the questions that's often asked is, why did she go to the door? Right? That if Imam Ali is in the house, why is Bibi Fatima going to the door of her house? When there are enemies and combatants, the description of the events of what was going on at the door of Bibi Fatima, كَانَ حُجُومَ عَلَى بَيْتِ Fatima. That they had soldiers encircling and making noise of war in front of the door of Imam Ali. Yet the one who goes to the door is Bibi Fatima. It was the defense of Wilayah that she said, I am the daughter of the Prophet. They should have some shame when they see the daughter of the Prophet come to the door. That it should cause them to walk away from the door. Yet the shamelessness was such that it did not prevent this event. There's an entire discussion that it was the necessity of protecting the Imam, that Sayyidah Fatima puts forward the protection of Imamat to ensure that if they are looking for Ali and if they find him at the door, then there is nothing that will be safe at that moment. So she says, I will be the one who goes to ensure this position of safety. Her role in the protection of Wilayah is one of the most important things that we can learn about the responsibility we all have to Wilayah. And that it's not a unique aspect that can only be done in the battlefield. That has many places within it, and each of us has an obligation. When we think of the coming of our Imam, Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, there's not one gender who has an obligation. You prepare your sons to serve for the Imam, prepare your daughters to serve for the Imam. All of our children will serve the Imam. All of our children will work for the Imam. Amongst the 313, it is known that at least 50 of them will be women. At least 50 of them. Who will be the servants of the Imam? Who will be amongst the leaders and the commanders of the Imam? Both have a role and responsibility. Both have an obligation. And the lesson of that idea that it is possible and necessary was introduced by the daughter of the Prophet. That the daughter of the Prophet served for Wilayah and worked for Wilayah. When after the shahadat of the Prophet, when no one would support Imam Ali took Sayyidah Fatima and the children with him and walked through the city of Medina looking for support. Why did she go? She went because the importance of the message of Wilayah that each of us has the obligation to preserve. This is why her role and her khair al-kathir of establishing and being the litmus test of understanding and saying, if the daughter of the Prophet finds this to be an extreme responsibility, that in the religion do not be absent of the concept of Wilayah. If Sayyidah Fatima insists on Wilayah, then who are we to ignore it and not to understand it? Which brings us to the third point, the spirituality and the spiritual status of Sayyidah Fatima to Zahra salamullahi alayha. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad. The khair al-kathir, the great goodness given to our Prophet, in establishing and ensuring that the religion of Islam was complete, is with this daughter. When we read Hadith Kisa, the event of the cloak. The event of the cloak, this hadith, we read whenever we hold events, whether we hold them in our house, we hold them in the masjid, whatever we do, this is one of the things that's recommended to recite. And it's something we shouldn't ignore. One, the du'as at the end of Hadith Kisa, the promise of our Prophet at the end of Hadith Kisa is one who remembers and recites this and stays attached to this is one who Allah will remove his worldly difficulties and his difficulties in the hereafter. Therefore, for us to be attached to Hadith Kisa, very good, very important. It has a du'a in it for us, that your difficulties now and future will be resolved. Why is it important? Is it just because of the du'a? No. Hadith Kisa lays out the fundamental of our faith and our philosophy of our faith. That there exists on this earth after our Prophet pure examples established by Allah for us to know the truth about religion. That the message of Allah did not end at the life of Rasulullah, but that there was a pure source for us to continue and stay attached to is the event of the cloak. Why? In it, Allah Himself is saying that I have purified these a thorough purification. Meaning that, oh humanity, if you want to know about my message and how to connect to your Creator, if you can't find the example of Rasulullah, here I lay out for you the foundation of how to find Rasulullah and how to find Allah Himself. Hence, our attachment to Hadith Qissa is an important item to ensure that we always know what the connection between humanity and Allah, how it is established, and who it is that are those people. And Allah Himself says, I did not create the heavens and the earth, the sky and the seas, except out of the love of these five, out of the love of these Ahl al-Qissa. Now what's interesting is when Allah turns to His angels and He says to them, all that I have created is out of the love of these. And Jibreel turns and asks, وَمَنْ تَحْتَ الْكِسَى? And who is it that is under this cloak, Ya Allah, that you love so much that everything that exists is because of them? How does Allah introduce Ahl al-Qissa? He says, Hum Fatima, wa abuha, wa ba'luha, wa banuha. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah says they are Fatima, her father, her husband, and her sons. Why? Wouldn't it make sense that Rasulullah, Rahmatul lil Alameen, is a source of introduction to the rest of Ahlul Bayt? There's a few different explanations in the philosophy of why we would imagine that the introduction is through Bibi Fatima and through the connection of Bibi Fatima to the rest of Ahlul Qissa. It's one of those things that the first time that one of my teachers introduced me to this, it was like, wow. Can you imagine? Have we understood who this personality is? Have we understood the azamat of how Allah has laid out this relationship? One explanation says that's how the nur of Nabuwwat and Wilayah, the nur of Nubuwwat and Imamat was joined together in the backbone of Adam. And it continued from the backbone of Adam until Abdul Muttalib. And then it split between Abdullah, who took the nur of Nabuwwat, and Abu Talib, Imran, who took the nur of Imamat. And that these two nur, Anwar, who had been separated, the one who joined this nur and continued it forward was the example of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha. One of the titles of Bibi Fatima is Hawra Insiya, the angelic being in human form. And one of the explanations that comes is that to take these two nur that had been joined together and were separated and to bring them back together, it had to be through an angelic being that could do this, which is why the nur of Sayyidah Fatima was something that was preserved with Allah in the heavens until the time of her birth came. You see, in the ziyarat of every ma'soom, with the exception of Sayyidah Fatima, we make this statement, أَشْهَدُ أَنَّكَ كُنْتَ نُورًا فِي الْأَسْلَابِ الشَّامِقَةِ وَالْأَرْحَامِ الْمُطَهَّرَةِ. We make this statement in every ziyarat we recite of every imam. We say, I swear, I bear witness that you were the pure light that was in the backbone of our forefathers and in the backbone of your forefathers and in the wombs of your mothers. لَمْ تُنَجِّسْكَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةُ بِأَنْجَاسِهَا. And that no ignorance ever came in contact with you. This is never said about Bibi Fatima. Because the birth of Bibi Fatima was not the fact that she was in the backbone of Adam. Rather, whether you take a look at the Ahl Sunnah sources or the Ja'fari Shia sources, they all agree that Sayyidah Fatima was a gift given to Rasulullah from heaven. In one explanation, it says to say that when Rasulullah went to Mi'raj, that he was given an apple to eat, and from that apple that he ate, that he received the nur of Sayyidah Zahra, after which she was born. In other narrations, the more Ja'fari narrations say that our Prophet was commanded to fast for 40 days, and after fasting for 40 days, food from heaven was sent for him to open his fast, after which Sayyidah Fatima was conceived, that she was not conceived of this world. And this is why she possessed that nur and that ability, that she was the one who joined the nur of Nabuwwat and Imamat to pass on to the rest of the Imams. Which brings about another point that says, why was she introduced in the heavens? Why were the Ahlul Bayt in the heavens introduced as Hum Fatima wa Abuha wa Ba'luha wa Banuha? First and foremost, notice that Allah says wa Banuha. When we ask the question, how many people were under the cloak? The typical answer is 5. You guys are okay, right? Everybody's with me? Nobody's gone to sleep yet? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Hadith Qissa is a beautiful thing. There's very interesting points in it. This is just one that I'll mention here. In the Arabic language, there is singular, there is dual, and there is plural. Allah, when He says the sons of Fatima, He doesn't use the dual. He doesn't use the dual. He uses the plural. How many people were under the cloak? See? Abuha, one, Rasulullah. وَبَعْلُهَا, her husband. وَبَنُوهَا, all of her sons. Meaning that Allah is indicating that these two, not just these two, but there are more of her sons. There's a very painful reality to this. I'll point to this in a minute. But the other explanation, one of the other philosophies of why Allah takes the time to introduce them this way, is that when Allah speaks to the malaika had been in the company of the nur of Fatima to Zahra up until her coming down to this earth. So when Allah wants to introduce Ahl al-Qissa to the malaika, He introduces them by the personality they are most familiar with, who was with them in the most recent amount of time, who was the example of Fatima to Zahra. Therefore, He gives them the explanation, O malaika, this nur that was with you, when she is accompanied by these others, then it is those whom I have created all of creation for and no one else. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Meaning the reality of that nur of Sayyidah Zahra being in the heavens, one of the proofs that we can make an argument for it to say that she is not from this earth is how Allah, when He introduces the people of the heavens to who they are, He introduces them by the one that they are most familiar with, and that is Bibi Fatima. It's a very interesting discussion. One of these interesting discussions that comes from it is to say that Banuha, her sons. One of the arguments that comes is to say that had Sayyidah Fatima not been martyred, all of her sons would have been imams of this ummah. And that lineage of imamat would have continued purely right from there, such that when Allah makes the statement, وَبَنُوهَا, the description is to say that had this continued the natural process, you would have seen all of her sons come from this one lineage and in this one place. But that her shahadat before her time is what caused this process, that they came as sons of one another instead of directly the sons of Sayyidah Zahra. This idea that she was Hawra Insiya, that she was the angelic being in human form, this also points to some of the reality of her masa'ib. One of the discussions that comes is that after the shahadat of the Prophet, Sayyidah Fatima began to weep. And her weeping was so severe that the people of Medina began to complain. And they said, "Oh Ali, tell her to either cry in the day or tell her to cry at night. We cannot stand her crying." Why couldn't they stand her crying? There are a number of arguments. One that says that they couldn't stand her crying. Why? Because it was the crying of the injustice done to the family of Rasulullah. Others make the argument that, you see, Sayyidah Fatima was not someone who was naturally of this world, that her weeping was something that resonated with the spirits of every human being, and it was painful to listen to. And it was difficult for them to listen to, because why? Her crying was that angelic crying, that pure crying. That when they said this to Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he goes to his wife and he goes to, "Oh Zahra," they say to either cry in the day or to cry in the night. She replies, she says, "Oh Ali, I am a guest of theirs for just a little while. Why won't they let me cry?" They describe and they say that Imam Ali went outside beyond the graveyard of Baqi and built a small shack. This was known as Baytul Ahzan, the house of sorrows. And every morning he would take Sayyidah Fatima and Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain and take them out to this small place that was under a tree. And Sayyidah Fatima would weep there, and in the night she would come home. She describes herself. She says, every person who loses someone, they cry much in the beginning, and as time passes, their crying decreases. Except for me, I am that one who has lost someone so dear to me, and has lost someone who was like no other example in humanity, that the longer I am separated from him, the more painful it is for me. This is that Madlum lady that 3 days after the shahadat of her father, they came to her door and they did not care about the fact that she was inside. They put firewood in front of her door and said, send out Ali, or else we shall burn down your door. And when she called out and said, but I am the daughter of Rasulullah, the answer of the mal'un came, walau, and so what? The description that they say is that they say that when that door was lit on fire and she stood behind it and it was pushed and the daughter of Rasulullah was pressed between the door and the wall, they said we heard something that sounded like the breaking of glass. When the Imam was asked about this, he says, you forgot. This was the angelic being in human form. The sound of the breaking of glass was the breaking of the ribs of our mother Zahra behind the door. When Muhsin becomes shaheed in this moment, they describe and they say that Ali ibn Abi Talib came out from the house and threw down those enemies. They describe and they ask, what was the condition of Ali? One writes and he says, Ali ran from the house. He threw his cloak and ran from the house. Oh Fidda, bury this Muhsin, because Ali cannot stand this sight. The defense of Imamat came in this instance that Sayyidah Fatima, not looking at her condition, comes out of her house after Ali ibn Abi Talib. Release Ali. They had known that Ali had been commanded to be patient. They say, how did you remove Ali from that location? They said, we put a rope around his neck and began to drag him through the streets of Medina. Eventually, Sayyidah Fatima runs after him, leave Ali, until Mal'un raises a whip on Sayyidah Fatima, that she calls out in the streets of Medina, I am not asking you to release Ali, I am asking you to stop hitting the daughter of Rasulullah in the street. There's a description that when Ali ibn Abi Talib was released and he was returning home, Imam Hassan is with his father and he is crying. Imam Ali says to Imam Hassan, he says, oh my son, why are you crying? Imam Hassan replies, Baba, if you had seen what I saw, you would weep as well. I saw the Mal'un raise his hand upon the face of my mother and strike her in a way that injured her eye. The narration says, Ali ibn Abi Talib replies, is that why Fatima will not look at me in the eye anymore? There is a period of maybe 2 months or maybe some more days that the argument comes that after this incident that Sayyidah Fatima remained alive and she remained in a state of weakness. Until eventually, in one day, it was found that she possessed an energy that she had not had for a long time, where she bathed her children, she fed them herself, and she made a wasi'ah to Imam Ali. Ya Ali, غسلني, حنتني, كفني, دفني بالليل. Oh Ali, when I leave you, perform my ghusl in the night. Perform my tahneet in the night. perform my kafan in the night. Oh Ali, bury me in the night. Amir al-Mu'mineen, listening to this, he left the masjid. Sayyidah Zahra said, I am going to my room in which I pray to Allah. I will continue to perform the dhikr of Allah. If you should hear my voice stop, know that I have returned to my Lord and my time is complete on this earth. Sayyidah Zahra, in the love of Allah, began to do his dhikr and his tasbih until eventually her breathing became shallow and her voice stopped and it was not heard again. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain were young boys who came home. They were told, eat your dinner. They said, have you ever seen us eat without our mother? Where is our mother? We shall eat with her. It was said to them, your mother is resting, let her rest. They said, we are the coolness of the eyes of our mother. Let us go to our mother. They proceeded into the room. One came from one side, the other from the other. Ya Ummah, ana habibuki Hassan, jawabini. Oh mother, I am your beloved Hassan, answer me. From the other side, Imam Hussain came to his mother. Ya Ummah. When they did not hear an answer, Imam Hassan lifts the cloth from the face of his mother, turns to his brother Hussain. Adam Allah lakal ajr, O Hussain. May Allah increase in your reward at the loss of our mother. The boys ran from the house to the masjid. They go to their father and they complain, Baba, our mother has left us. They describe and say that Ali ibn Abi Talib would stand up and then he would sit down. He would stand up again as if he was confused and then sit down. They said, oh Ali, what has overcome you? They said, Imam Ali replied, he says, my companion has left me. I don't know if I should stand or if I should sit. Ali is lost in this moment. Imam Ali fulfilled the wasiyah, but they described during this wasiyah, Salman would sit outside and give the water to Amir al-Mu'mineen for the ghusl. At one point in time, Salman calls out and he says that I saw Ali ibn Abi Talib leave the room of the ghusl, come sit outside in a corner and begin weeping. I asked my Imam, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you are the Fatih of Khaybar. You are the champion of warriors. Yet you are crying during a ghusl. He says, oh Salman, my Fatima had wounds even I did not know of. They had injured her in ways that even I did not know of. Amir al-Mu'mineen completed this ghusl. He invited the children. He said, come and bid farewell to your mother. This is your last opportunity to bid farewell. They describe and say that Imam Hussain would not go to his mother. Imam Ali says, oh Hussain, oh my son, go bid farewell to your mother. He says, I am no less than Isa. When Maryam left Isa, she called out to him, I will not go to my mother until she calls to me. They describe and say that from the kafan, hands rose. Oh my beloved Hussain, oh my oppressed Hussain, come to me. They describe and say that children attach themselves to the chest of their mother. Jibreel called from the heavens, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, there is a majlis in the heavens. There is a crying in the heavens. If you do not remove these boys, I do not know if the heavens will not collapse. O Jibreel, you wept and cried at Hussain on the chest of Zahra. Where was the heavens? Why did they not collapse when Malahul Shiver sat on the chest of Hussain? In the darkness of the night, this janazah left the house. You see, we don't know till today where this janazah was taken. That madloom, oppressed lady was buried in the night, and where we don't know. But there are some conditions of the burial that we can imagine. You see, to bury someone, it takes two people. One who is in the grave and one who is above the grave. one who passes the body from above and one who receives it below to lay it into the lahad. It takes two people. This madloom lady was so oppressed that at the time of her janazah, there were not two mahram men to bury Fatima to Zahra. There are only two people who were this oppressed. One is Fatima to Zahra, the daughter of Rasulullah. The other, go look in Sham after the Waqia of Karbala. It is the daughter of Abu Abdullah, Sakina, who had only her brother to marry her. We wonder, oh my madloom Imam, how did you marry that one that there was no one to help you? In the example of Imam Zainul Abidin, the Masa'ib say, we imagine the hands of Abu Abdullah would come up and say, O Sajjad, return my Sukaina to me. And Imam Zainul Abidin would complain, oh Father, her ears were not ripped. Her skin was not burned. Her face was not bruised by the hands of Shimr when you left her to me. Forgive me, O Father. We imagine in Medina, Amir al-Mu'mineen alone, trying to bury Fatima to Zahra. It would be the hands of Rasulullah. Oh Ali, return my daughter to me. Amir al-Mu'mineen would complain, Ya Rasulullah, her ribs were not broken when you left her. Her arm was not injured when you left her. Her Mohsin was not shaheed when you left her to me. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. With tears in your eyes, Ya Allah, بحق زهرة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها. Oh Allah, accept this majlis from us. Ya Allah, forgive our sins and cover our flaws. Allah, give the thawab of this majlis to the sponsors of tonight's program, our family members, and all those mu'mineen who are in need. Ya Allah, there are mu'mineen who are oppressed and suffering through strife and difficulty in this world. Ya Allah, give aman to them. Oh Allah, keep our children on the upright path of Ahlul Bayt. Make them from the supporters of Sahib al-Zaman. Hasten the reappearance of that Imam, that when they say that Sayyidah Fatima was pressed between the door and the wall, she called out, "Oh my son Mahdi, why do you not come to the aid of your mother?" Hasten the reappearance of Sahib al-Zaman. Make us and our families from the upright supporters of Sahib al-Zaman. Entitle us the Shafa of Sayyidah Fatima in this world and hereafter. Fatimiyah Hussain.
पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, तुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, तुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, तुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है। खातून कोई गम से यूं चूर नहीं देखी, ऐसी कोई दुनिया में मस्तूर नहीं देखी। 18 बरस में ही लगती जो ज़ईफ़ा है, पहलू भी शिकता है, तुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है, पहलू भी शिकस्ता है, तुर्बत भी शिकस्ता है। दरबार में जालिम ने की ऐसी पजीराई کس طرح سے تو بی بی پھر لوٹ کے گھر آئی، بالوں کی سفیدی نے سب حال سنایا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ شکستہ ہے، تو روتی رہی گھر میں حیدر سے بھی چھپ چھپ کے، عصمت کی طرح دکھ بھی پردے میں رہے تیرے، کچھ درد تیرے بی بی بس جانتی فضا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، دو ایسے جنازے ہیں تاریخ میں جو اٹھے، بس گھر کے ہی لوگوں نے دونوں کو دیے کاندھے، ایک فاطمہ زہرا ہے، ایک بالی سکینہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، ہے مرہم تیرے زخموں کا بی بی نہ ملا اب تک، اولاد امیہ کی باقی ہے جفا اب تک، رونے پہ بھی پہرا تھا تربت پہ بھی پہرا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، مہدی سے کوئی پوچھے کیا اس پہ گزرتی ہے، آواز بقیہ سے جب رونے کی آتی ہے، آنکھوں سے لہو رو کر وہ بھی یہی کہتا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تصویر حقیقت کی خوابوں کو بنا دیجئے، اے بی بی تکلم کو تعبیر دکھا دیجئے، ماتم تیری تربت پہ ہوتے ہوئے دیکھا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے،
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات، اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد، متوجہ زیارت،
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله وخاتم النبيين، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا أبا محمد حسن بن علي المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين الشهيد بكربلاء، السلام عليكم يا تسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين، علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، ومحمد بن علي باقر وعلم النبيين، وجعفر بن محمد الصادق، وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم، وعلي بن موسى الرضا، ومحمد بن علي الجواد، وعلي بن محمد الهادي، والحسن بن علي العسكري، السلام عليك يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك والأنصارك والمستشهدين بين يديك. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.